Many row crop farmers are concerned about having access to a wide array of crop protection tools. I asked EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin what his agency is doing to ensure new active ingredients are being reviewed and approved on a timely basis.
So we inherited a massive backlog, over 14,500 of a backlog inside of our pesticide review. That backlog now has gone down several thousand since then. We're looking more in the 8,000 range as opposed to over 14,500. It's been primarily two things that we've incorporated. One is we added full-time employees. We've added personnel, added scientists to that office. So we increased bandwidth from that standpoint. And then we also have been investing in IT, improving the software, the ability to be able to do that aspect of the function, increase bandwidth from that standpoint. And collectively, it's allowed us to massively reduce this backlog. And we're just going to continue to blaze through it, applying the best available science, being transparent with the public on that science, being able to communicate, and also be very active throughout the country. As you and I were just talking briefly before this interview started, I'm traveling to Oklahoma City here very shortly. In my first 9.5 months as administrator, I went to all 50 states. I met with a lot of farmers, and I think that's been real key, is to bring the agency to real world America, to the farms, to the state farm bureaus, and also to be able to hear all the very diverse feedback and perspectives, so that when I come back to DC, I'm armed with that in making the right decisions and getting this stuff done as fast as possible. And also, I would say it's just about setting priorities. And for us, we are prioritizing fulfilling our statutory obligations on this front, as opposed to being diverted towards some type of pet project that will take personnel away from, say, getting through the pesticide backlog.
Yeah, and Administrator, I know those farmers have told us they're grateful for the opportunity to talk with you in the field, but we've heard that there's dozens of new products, including 6 new active ingredients, that the industry has been waiting on to get in the market for 2027 that are still sitting under management review and not moving forward. When will EPA take action, deliver those new crop protection tools for farmers to use in the 2027 year?
Yeah, well, we've been pumping through a lot of approvals very actively every single day. I mean, I've had multiple meetings just yesterday talking about being able to get through these actions, and so we're getting the yes throughout the day, every day. We're doing our due diligence. We're making sure that corners are never cut, and we're also cognizant of when growing seasons start. That creates more urgency on a particular timeline. We saw that with regard to the dicamba registration earlier this year, as we were starting to go through the soybean and cotton growing season that started earlier in the South than it does further up north. Some of the requests that we get that come into us are more of an emergency request because a growing season started, because there aren't alternatives that are on the market, or maybe because that alternative is far more toxic than what that application is for. We just were very responsive, way ahead of schedule, way ahead of the PREA deadline on a request from the Florida citrus growers on the Caricia T1 rootstock application. As you know, over the course of the last 22, 23 years, they've seen a 95% reduction in the amount of boxes coming out of Florida. It's not just a Florida issue, but it's very much a Florida issue. So we're cognizant not just of our statutory deadlines, which is key. We're also cognizant of where a particular tool is needed because a growing season started, which could be very different compared to another application that might be awaiting an action, but the growing season doesn't start for, months.
Yeah. I'd like to talk about the Make America Healthy Again movement. Many involved with that would like to see pesticides, and particularly glyphosate, eliminated entirely. How are you balancing the concerns with farmers with those in the MAHA movement that have been so supportive of this Trump administration?
Actually, it's quite simple for us at EPA. It's about following the science. We want gold standard science, best available science. Right now, we are in the middle of doing a review on glyphosate I have met frequently with our dedicated career scientists who are working on this issue. Many long meetings where we're going through their work, and I've made it very clear to them that I do not want to bias their research. I do not want to tell them. I don't want to prejudge for them where I want their results to end up at the end of the review. I actually want to empower them to just be able to do their job, to be able to review the science, to do it fully, and for us to be totally transparent with the public, to communicate whatever those scientific findings are, whatever those findings are. So it's actually pretty straightforward for me. The way I look at it here is making sure that there isn't interference with the science. The science is the science. They have the studies that are in front of the agency. We want to just get the review right and then communicate those results, those findings with the American public.
Yeah, the ag industry celebrated the historic renewable volume obligations announced earlier this year, although there's been some speculation that the half-RIN rule could potentially never be implemented. But I'd like your thoughts on what tangible economic impacts does EPA expect for farmers, processors, rural communities over the next several years, and what do you expect to see in that next version of the RVOs?
Well, for one, we've signaled and we are planning on moving forward with the discounted RIN that you just referenced with the foreign imports. So that's something that we're looking to implement starting in 2028. As soon as RFS Set 2 was done, announced, we immediately moved to the work on RFS Set 3. One of the biggest challenges was inheriting a many-year backlog of what accumulated up to 175 small refinery exemption requests. That backlog was cleared. That very much helps with our work, our bandwidth. We've received more small refinery exemption requests since last summer, but it's nothing like the 175 application backlog that we were dealing with this time last year. Also, now we have a formula that has been utilized, that is public, that is known. So there's consistency and predictability as we go towards RFS Set 3. And the last point I think also helps is that while the 2024 deadline was blown for this RFS Set 2 that we just put out, it is so much easier now at this point for us to not only be able to get RFS Set 3 done urgently, but to have this back onto a timeline where the community throughout the country is going to be able to look towards future deadlines and be able to expect to be able to demand that deadline is going to get met. So yeah, I know that we inherited a lot in 2025 to be able to catch all of this up. But man, it feels good to be done with RFS Set 2 and to be able to move forward with all of that in the rearview mirror. I think it's going to really help this agency to be back on track. While all this is going on, of course, Congress is debating statutory changes. We will follow whatever federal statute says. If Congress passes new legislation that makes any changes here on this front, then we'll follow that guidance. In the meantime, though, as far as predictability, the way that we pursued RFS Set 2 is the way that we're looking at approaching RFS Set 3 as well.
Yeah, and big picture on RFS, I mean, do you believe that it works as it should right now, or does it need a better look and some adjustment from Congress?
Well, I've been involved in a lot of conversations with Congress where I've shared ideas. Our agency provides technical assistance. This has largely been a debate within Congress that has very different views, different visions. The votes and the coalitions are on different alignments. It's not necessarily a red versus blue issue entirely. I've had conversations with two Republicans on the phone where those two Republicans had a difference of opinion. So, it's good to let that legislative process work its will. For me as the EPA administrator to provide my feedback, my perspective, my lessons learned. But my point to them and my point to the American public, I want to be very clear. I will follow whatever the law says. And I think that that's very important because for too long, you had heads of federal agencies that were getting too creative and saying, regardless of what the federal law says, I'm going to take my own creative interpretation of it. I'm going to utilize Chevron deference. I am going to say that if this law doesn't say I can't, well, I guess that means that I can. But post Loper Bright, now that the Supreme Court has weighed in, they've gotten rid of Chevron deference, I'm going to follow the best reading of the law, whatever that law says. There's one best reading of it, and that's what I'm looking to follow. And I think that's important for the public to know, so that there isn't as much of a pendulum swing and it's very predictable that I'm just going to do whatever the law says.
Yeah. Biofuel and corn and soy groups have said that marine fuel needs to be brought into the RFS to incentivize the market for renewable marine fuel. Do you see that happening?
Well, it's certainly a conversation that I'm willing to have internally within the agency, with other agencies, with Congress, and with the community. I am open-minded here in my travels as I've gone throughout the country. I want to hear not just ideas, I want to hear all of the ideas, all of the asks. No ask is too big, no ask is too small. I don't want people to give me their what's number one on their list or the top three on their list. I want everything. I will say, just in full disclosure, that that particular topic you just raised hasn't come up much, but you're raising it, and I'm glad you are, on behalf of whomever it is that you've been speaking to gain the perspective that you certainly have, and that's why you're hosting the show, is because of that multidimensional perspective that you've accumulated through your experience. So we'll get some feedback internally within the agency on what they're thinking on the topic, and we'll let you know.
And Administrator, year-round E15 has been a big topic, moved through the House, now waits action in the Senate. President Donald Trump has said that he will sign it if it reaches his desk. But, what is EPA doing, and what are you doing in your role to actively engage on Capitol Hill as this now sits in the Senate?
Well, I just had 4 hearings in front of Congress over the course of the last few weeks where this topic came up at multiple hearings. This topic also came up when I was at my congressional hearings last year. And just like I was explaining my answers last year, I similarly did the same this year when the topic came up, talking about how much of my time is spent interacting with Congress, where members of Congress have to spend so much of their bandwidth advocating to the EPA administrator for that next ask, that next signature, that next approval on E15, whether it's waivers that are coming in from 8 state governors, or it's a waiver for the summer, which we have to sign off on. I have to sign off on every 20 days as we're going through the summer, depending on the conditions at that particular time when we're signing off on the waiver. It's really a process that is year-round. So for Congress to legislate on this topic is going to not just increase my bandwidth as EPA administrator, and I'm fine here. I have a great team, and I'll spend all day, every day focused on all of the work that the federal statute requires. But I have to say, for members of Congress, I'm sure that all of these senators and congressmen who spend a lot of their energy contacting me and meeting with me to discuss that next ask on E15, I'm sure they would like that time where they can focus on all sorts of other issues that are important to their constituents. And that's something that I've shared with other members of Congress who maybe don't appreciate that, because they're not the House members or the senators who are the ones contacting me with those asks all year round. So just kind of filling them in on what life is like, being a senator inside of, Nebraska or Iowa or Kansas and elsewhere, where they're constantly coming to this agency at fighting on behalf of their state's constituents on E15 related topics.
Administrator, final question as we're up here. The final waters of the U.S. rule. When can we expect that, and what changes might there be in the final rule?
I don't have an exact time on that announcement. We've been going through the public comments that were provided. We very much appreciated the feedback that we've gotten from throughout the American public, and we've taken it very seriously. And we've been engaging through the interagency process very deliberately. We want to get it right. I mean, I could just rush and sign off on a Waters of the United States final rule today. Or if there's any outstanding issue, and we've been working through a couple of aspects that are being internally discussed, and that's a good, healthy thing, because we want to get it right. We want it as legally durable as possible, and honestly, my goal is perfection on this. And I'm not going to say that I want to make perfect the enemy of the good, but I want to get it right too. So, we're looking to be able to finalize this as soon as possible. But if someone comes to me today and says that, hey, this is extraordinarily important, that this particular aspect of the rule needs this small tweak, you have my attention. I'll hear your argument. And if it is something that I agree is very important, even if it's a small part of that final rule, then let's get it right, because this is our one shot to have that one definition that hopefully withstands the test of time. I want a definition of water United States that can actually survive upcoming presidential elections, where pendulums might swing, and you have a Republican president today. You can't say with certainty exactly who the president is going to be, and after upcoming elections, each of the 4-year intervals that are ahead. So we want to get it right now, once and for all. And we're taking it very seriously and looking forward to getting this done, hopefully, really as soon as possible. It's very time sensitive for all of us.